In this lesson, we're going to take a look at a couple of quick techniques of how to make tabletops. As you can see in the scene, we've got a little nest of tables, and we've also got a table that's going to go at the end of the bed. Now, what I done was I imported the basic chair mesh from one of the previous Slingshare files that we worked on, and set them out over the tables to judge height and size. After looking at a reference image. I didn't want to copy the tables exactly, they're pretty similar, but what I've done was just to add a little bit more detail. Where these are quite rounded at the edges, I wanted to add a little bit more detail from a table that I've previously seen myself. So there's two quick techniques for this, which you might be aware of, you might not. And the first thing, we'll open this group and we'll just grab this shape and this. We'll turn these off, and one is a lathe modifier. So with the lathe modifier, in the front view, I've determined, we'll isolate this. In the front view, I've determined how thick my table wanted to be, which I think was 20 or 15 mil. We'll just measure in that. So 20 mil. And how wide it was, I wanted my table to be around 600 wide, so I've made it 640. So 320 from the center out, radius makes diameter. And what I've done was I've just drawn a spline as normal. And just guessed this. I've put no dimensions in. I've just put a few little fillets and chamfers. It's just an editable spline, nothing special. But what I've done is set the pivot point to this center vert on the bottom. And then if we go into perspective mode and I switch on the lathe, it will lathe this shape around the center point and weld it in the middle as long as you press weld core. Now, this is a really great tool. We'll look at it for making some other more detailed objects later on when we're creating some props and some assets like glasses and bottles. But this is a quick example for a tabletop. Now, what you can do just to tidy this up a little bit is you can use the sub-object, and if you hold down Control, it'll display what you're going to select, and you can just click on them all. And you can inset that by like 100 mil or something. Press OK, and then delete that. And we'll do the same thing on this one. Hold Control, just ring around there, select, inset, yep, and then delete. And then we can just pick these two inside faces, and we can just cap them. And then you can in your lathe, you can change the iterations, how many segments you want. There's no point because you can just turbo smooth it. We've already got some nice tight edges in here, so we know it'll smooth correctly. And when we stick the turbo smooth on, we get a nice smooth shape and a nice edge to our table. Now we want to use the same detail so it looks like the same matching furniture on it looks like the same matching furniture on the table that goes at the end of the bed, so it looks like it's the same set. So what I've done is I've taken that spline, I've copied it. I'll just open this group as well. Sorry, I grouped them and named them so I wouldn't lose them. And I'll show you what we do with this one. So we take the same spline, but rather than going all the way to the middle to create a circular table, I've just cut it off somewhere. So we just get a basic profile of the edge of the table. If you can imagine looking down the side of the table, this is what you would see at the end. And then in the top view, I'll just put it in perspective as well. I've created a rectangle that's around the size that I want. And then with editable splines, I have filleted the edges to create these smooth fillets, and then using Bezier corners, I just put a little bit of a curve on that to create a slightly elliptical shape rather than it just being a flat table. Now we could sweep profile this like we've done with some of the earlier architectural stuff, but it doesn't necessarily cap the middle. I know you can do that yourself, but there is a tool that does it for you. It's called Bevel Profile. So we can switch Bevel Profile on, and obviously it's already been picked, so we just pick the profile and it creates our profile around there and caps the middle for us, as long as you press capping start and capping end. If you don't, it just creates a basic sweep. So cap, that fills it in, just to show you what it's actually doing, seeing as I'd already done it. If we turn that to an editable spline, and we just stretch this out, and we put a couple of edges or splines in here and delete this. If I then pick this as the profile, it'll use that. So that's all it's doing, is just using the shape of the spline, the same way a sweep modifier would. And you can see the profile there in the middle. So hopefully that's two quick ways of creating the tables, well, tabletops. The legs, just simple editable polys, tapered either end. There's no need to put any detail under the table where the leg goes in. We're never going to see it in these views. For these ones, a little bit more advanced. This is taking some of the techniques that we used for the sling chair and adding in a hole in the correct place using the exact same method, just putting in connect so we get a square, chamfering the hole, and then extruding inwards. So we get that. And this always creates a nice little bit of shadowing and detail in there when this central beam fits into the hole at either end. And for this table bottom, as you'll be able to see, we just created that with a rectangle, and we've just extruded a big chunk in and put a few edge loops in, and it creates a little slot for that to fit in. Again, it just adds nice detail to the scene and creates a little bit of shadowing and edge gapping, so it doesn't look like it's just geometry going through each other. And that's always going to add to the realism of a scene.